When it comes to everything fantasy football, you have to ask one question. Don't you deserve a fighting chance? And now, welcome to Fighting Chance Live with your hosts, Kevin Tompkins and Scott Fishbowl 9 winner, Gary Haddow.
Welcome in to Fighting Chance Live, everybody. Sorry we are fashionably late, but we had a fourth guest try to pop on. Did not work out. So you know what? We got myself, Gary. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's nice to be back. Said it last week. It just feels like the 7 days between is an eternity living in this COVID world and fast-paced news breaks that are just coming at you left and right. So
we will get to that, but let's introduce the beautiful Lauren Carpenter, our guest, who tried to bring her demon on. It's attached to her microphone. But Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Is the demon here? Because I can't hear it. Demon?
Demon.
Oh, dang it. See, it tries to be popular. Hang on just a second, guys.
Well, sounds good. That's fine. While Lauren gets her stuff together, Gary. So, what's new with you? Anything new?
Oh, nothing, man. I feel like we live in this like off-season world of waiting for football, and now it's here? Question mark? There we go.
I'm back.
Lauren is all right. So now we got the AirPods in, so I think we're good. Lauren, how are you?
I'm great. Besides the demon that really wants to like infiltrate all of my guest podcasting I go on. It has a thing against StreamYard. Doesn't matter which microphone I use. It's just like, oh, StreamYard, I'm here. And it's really freaky. Yeah. But I'm good though. How are you gentlemen doing?
StreamYard is like water to your gremlin microphones.
I do have two Pomeranians that look a lot like Gizmo. So there is that.
There we go.
That is awesome. So, again, thank you for sharing some time with us here on the stream, and let us know where we can find you, Lauren, what you're up to, what you're writing. Go from there.
So if anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Stepmom Lauren on all of my social media platforms. I'm a writer for the Fantasy Footballers, also a writer for Fantasy Pros. And you can find all of my work at my website, stepmomlauren.com. Just type that right in the URL. I would refrain from Googling it, especially in front of children or family members. There's another Stepmom Lauren we won't talk about, but that's not me. So yeah, you can find all my work, my articles. I have up there other guest podcast spots, videos, you name it. I love fantasy football and I love talking to y'all. So come find me, Stepmom Lauren.
It's an awesome site. I've never actually been here before. I love it.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's good. I build websites for a living, so it better be halfway decent.
Yeah, very cool.
So we also know that you and Faith are going to be doing the Club Fantasy FFL Women of Fantasy Football stream in a couple weeks. So why don't you tell us a little about that too?
Yeah. So my girl Faith, you can find her at FF_Leap of Faith. She and I are taking over Club Fantasy, whether they like it or not. So we're going to be doing that for a month. I believe our first one, I just got back from vacation, so I want to make sure I'm correct. But I believe we're doing a Tuesday, August 11th show. I think that's our only Tuesday. Other than that, it's on Wednesdays. And you guys follow Club Fantasy. It'll be on their YouTube page. We're just basically celebrating women in fantasy football. Just being like, hey, we're here. We love fantasy football as much as the guys. We love to talk about it. We love to watch it. We're having a stellar lineup. We've got, Casey Kasem, we have Liz Loza, we've got Sam Holt, a ton of really incredible women in the industry. So we're really excited. It should be fun. Although I'm pretty sure Josh and Joe are like, what have we gotten ourselves into? It's going to be a fun, hot mess, and I cannot wait.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So, so getting into the football side now, we've got a little bit of a new happening, some breaking news. Yeah, that just happened.
I thought that I clicked on something and ruined the feed.
So did I. I was like, what is the demon back?
The demon is taking over the graphics department here, but no. So we just got word. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be seeing his running back room empty a little, Damian Williams has opted out. Probably the biggest, I'd say the biggest so far of NFL players that have opted out. So I'll ask you, Lauren, first of all. Gary, all right.
Sorry.
Ewan with the guest
He's
spot.
naked, so we're trying to keep him off screen.
Yeah. We are having fun here. So
That's my
Lauren,
brother. No, I'm just kidding. It's my son.
So Lauren, what do you think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire now that he doesn't have to contend with Damian Williams now?
I'm pretty sure it's the same. He's going to be going early. Everyone knows it's going to be his backfield. It's just a lot sooner than we all anticipated. But this was inevitable, right? I mean, we all kind of knew that CEH was going to be taking over here. Kind of obvious. So this is just, I mean, it just takes away that delay, and it's going to probably be starting from week 1. So not surprised. Just kind of gets things out of the way. You know, like, let's not date. Let's just go straight to the courthouse in Vegas. Let's Elvis drive through in Vegas and just go for it.
I obviously have a different opinion than this. You know, moving forward, we have the same opinion. But I don't know if you saw the show dog. I actually had CEH as my bust up until today.
I saw.
Yeah, it's not a bust. Like, I didn't think he was going to do well, and we'll get in kind of this conversation in a bit. But I felt like they were going to be splitting more than we would have expected. I think blitz pickups and that type of thing for rookies when you have a shortened offseason, you don't have a preseason. I thought that where he was going in drafts at the end of the second, ultimately, like, you're going to be happy for the second half of the season, but what's going to happen in the first half? And what, you know, now it's, you know, I just took him at the 2-0 or 206 or whatever in a best ball and Raz Bowl, and I'm super pumped about it. I happened to be on the clock right as the news kind of broke, and I was like,
timing.
Dude, easy take right there. I mean, I think he's a back of the first round. That's where I think he's going to end up.
And the only thing I'm upset about this whole situation is that I was really waiting for everyone to like spend this high draft capital on Clyde Edwards-Helaire and either like freak out and want to trade him immediately, of which I'd be like, I'm here. How can I get part of CEH? I'll take them off your hands. Or if they rage drop them or something, then I'd be like, swoop and go and get him. Because I wasn't willing to pay the high draft price for him because, like I said, to me, it was going to take a while for him to get going, especially, you know, with Damon Williams there. So it was like, I don't know. But now I don't even have that opportunity. And it's kind of like, all right, well, missed him. Oh, well, moving on, right? You know.
Yeah. Do you think he'll be justified as a back of the first, now early second, one of those two kind of? I can't imagine he's going to fall to the middle of the second in a lot of drafts.
I mean, I'm not super duper in love with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so I don't necessarily have an opinion either way. Personally, would I take him there? No. But would I judge others for being like, I'm all in?
Yeah.
Not really. I'm so on the fence about it that I don't really want to like put my chips into one place for either opinion and then really not care that much. You know, it's like, okay, there's other running backs that I can look at, other positions I can look at depending on your league structure and your scoring that I'm okay with. But yeah, I mean, if someone wants to take him there, I mean, go for it. I mean, who knows? He can explode a lot earlier. There's nothing in his way now except for his rookie status and COVID and lack of repetitions. So we'll see how well he can get over that. But, you know, he's his own worst enemy right now, and he's the only one standing in his way.
I do have one last question for both of you, and I actually don't really know your stance on where these players are at. So, CEH now, obviously, or Nick Chubb, CEH or Joe Mixon. Are you taking? Okay, as in CEH by far, you're not touching him over those two guys.
I am going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Joe Mixon. I will take Alexander Madison over Joe Mixon. I will take Darrell Henderson over Joe Mixon. I will take my Pomeranian over Joe Mixon, who doesn't even play in the NFL yet, but he is scrappy. You never know.
I said, I have no idea what you were thinking of these.
I hate Joe Mixon.
I was expecting you to be like, oh, I'm
not a fan. 4. No, I know, and only for a personal reason that I dislike Joe Mixon, so I don't want to be a hypocrite and be like he's a really made some mistakes as a youth, but great in fantasy football. I don't like to do that. So I just stay away from Joe Mixon completely. Plus, he's a bust every single year. So that's Joe Mixon. As for Nick Chubb, I think I would put my chips more in Nick Chubb just because I've seen what he's able to do. He did get Kareem hunted, though, another player that I'm kind of like on. So that does worry me for him. And that Browns offense is always a little scary. But I tend to put a little bit more faith in someone who's done it before, as opposed to a rookie coming into it. But again, you're going to look at a tale of two seasons between those guys, because if it happens for Nick Chubb again, going to be super productive, and then that might get taken away by Kareem Hunt, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to start off slow and then get really hot. So I'm not sure. But my own personal opinion would be to go for the veteran over the rookie.
Kevin?
As currently constructed right now with that Browns offense, I would probably take CEH over Chubb, and that's a personal thing with Chubb too, just because we saw what when him and Hunt are both, active. We saw they were pretty close in PPR. I think we see a little bit more of that this year. There's a lot of options there in Cleveland. So I would take CEH over Chubb. As far as Mixon, they're pretty even for me. I think I put CEH at RB8. Now I'm not going to touch him there unless he falls into the second round, which you look at home leagues. Or if you go into industry leagues and they're chasing upside, they're going to be taking CEH. You're not going to get a shot at him. So I'm not going to touch him. I'm probably not going to get the opportunity to. The only opportunity I would have gotten is if I had been up in Raspberry at 112 when that news broke, and I would have taken him. But other than that, not going to get a shot at him.
For sure.
So, all right. So we're going to be talking some busts today. So Gary, you want to start us off with your quarterback bust?
Yeah, I would love to. I want to just have the quick conversation. We did this for sleepers. I want to know how you define a bust or what parameters you approach it. I'm just going to jump in and say mine. I think that's somebody that's taken after probably QB 13, QB 14. It's difficult to say they're a bust. I think within the running backs, I'm really looking at minimum a top 24, but realistically probably a top 15. Wide receivers somewhere around, I don't know, like top 20. Because I think anything after that, what you're putting in is not that much. And so I found it to be extremely difficult to select a lot of these guys. Kevin, your bust at QB is who both Lauren and I wanted as our bust, but you got there first. And so I ended up going with Deshaun Watson. And I specifically want to make sure I don't just get shit on and people are like, what are you doing? You're crazy. I mean, this has to do with where you're taking them. And I think that especially when we approach more home leagues, that he is going to be up in the top 5 quarterbacks taken. I think I can't say at best because he's Deshaun Watson. Full cards on the table. Dude is awesome. He's a fantastic quarterback, real life and fantasy. That being said, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, you get Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller as your 1-2. And where are we at week 8 with those two? If they both play all 16, there's no issues there, but you still never know. Randall Cobb comes in to be a nice, PPR piece, maybe old reliable type thing, but we don't actually know. And then Kenny Stills, same thing. We've seen it in stretches. And then you have David Johnson coming in, new offense, going to be learning it, great pass catching back. But ultimately, Duke Johnson is, to me, going to be the biggest beneficiary of everything. And so I'm concerned that everyone's like, well, he's going to use his legs more. He's going to use his legs more. I mean, that he's just going to get crushed. And we've seen him get crushed and crushed and crushed. And how much beating can you take before it's too much? And so I think that he's going to end up finishing closer to QB 10. So I would not be spending up on a early mid-round pick on Deshaun Watson. I'd rather fade him. It's not that he's a absolute bust. I don't think he's going to be QB 17 barring injury, right? Who knows? But it's something that I'm staying away from. Although I like taking his pieces at their respective values. Yeah.
What do you think, Lauren? What do you think about Watson there?
So it was so funny when I was looking through the show doc. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got 2, and I didn't look to see who you guys chose. And my 2 were Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson. So we're like, oh my god, okay. So I decided to go with Aaron Rodgers. I think more so because of the veteran status name value that's associated with him. It's still so hard to be but he's Aaron Rodgers. But in fantasy, it's just he has not done very well, especially in I am in a home league where you have to have a quarterback that, is elite. And I know he is elite, but for some reason, he just does not produce in fantasy the way that you would expect. It's one of those weird breaks between real football and fantasy football. So Aaron Rodgers is definitely one of those for me. He will be a great, awesome quarterback, but he is not going to perform for you in fantasy. But everyone just associates that name value of Aaron Rodgers like it's going to translate over into fantasy football, and it doesn't. And it hasn't. Last year, it didn't. It's like, hey guys, come on. This is just understand that you can still say he's an awesome quarterback, but he's not going to finish well in fantasy.
Right.
I was going to say they can't support a wide receiver too. All they have is Devontae Adams.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a new quarterback that Aaron Rodgers is like, yeah, I'm done. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in another jersey. So yeah, peace out. So it's like, okay.
Now I know what Brett felt like.
No, yeah, exactly. So it's a little strange. So that's another kind of, layer to that don't draft Aaron Rodgers cake.
Yeah, I'm a Packer fan, as you couldn't tell behind me, but I'm gonna piss some Packer fans off. Look, he has Devontae Adams and a bunch of guys who are probably gonna get 40 to 50 targets and also have gigantic ranges of outcome. Like, what do we know out of MVS? He was woefully inefficient last year. We know he's got, Chase Sternberger, who hasn't played a snap in the regular season. We know he has Aaron Jones, who is the second leading target last year. So we're really basing that off. And Devin Funchess just opted out, so we lose another target. He's got Alan Lazard too. But if Adams gets hurt, we're talking about him now as a bust, and he has Devontae Adams, probably the consensus number 2 receiver. If he gets hurt, good Lord. And that offense is trending toward run heavy. We saw 2018, they went from 40 pass attempts a game down to 35. Rush attempts went up from 20 to 25 from 18 to 19. That's probably going to keep trending that way as those rush attempts and pass attempts get closer together, especially considering the draft and the fact they didn't get a wide receiver out of that. His fantasy points per game have gone down from the last 3 full seasons, from 23.8 in 2016 down to 17.4. Lauren hit the nail exactly on the head. Right now, he's a better real life quarterback than a fantasy quarterback, and you're basically just drafting him because of what he did in the last decade.
Yeah, Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football actually had an interview with Aaron Rodgers, and it lasted like 2 hours long. They were drinking scotch and just having this like great chat. And he was actually, during the draft, he was going through all of these guys, Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, all of these players that he really wanted, and he was hoping that Green Bay was going to be targeting. He didn't even find out that they drafted a quarterback until his agent, I think, sent him a text and was like, hey, they just drafted a quarterback. Did you know this? He's like, no. Ooh. So that's so interesting, right? Because of the whole Matt LaFleur thing and how are they going to interact? Well, I guess that answers that question. And then when he openly just said, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if I am on another team. It's like, all right. But he wasn't bitter about it. He wasn't mad. He was realistic. That's Aaron Rodgers for you. That's why he does so well under pressure, and that's why he's Aaron Rodgers. But again, this is a very ambiguous situation in Green Bay. So just that on top of everything else, it's just, I have to stay away from it. All the way from the receivers to the running backs, I'm avoiding Green Bay as much as I can in fantasy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as far as Green Bay. Being a Packer fan, I'd love to.
It sucks too. I'm sorry. My dad's a huge Packer fan, so I feel you.
Hey, it is what it is, because I'll take Adams all day long just for the volume that he's going to get. Yeah. Other than that, I think we're done chasing the wide receiver. I passed on Devontae Adams
in the first round. That's how much I don't believe in the Packers, is I passed on Devontae Adams. I had a chance to take him, and I did not. Took someone else.
Understandable.
Completely understandable. So, So why don't we want to dive into some running backs? And Lauren, you might have a slightly controversial pick here as your running back bust. I'm going to let you go into that one.
Okay, so Gary, you had talked about what exactly is a bust, right? So let me preface what I think a bust is. So in my world, and everything, I'm right in my world all the time, ergo, I'm right now. But in a bust, like if you draft somebody with the at a certain ADP with the expectation that is where they're going to finish, and they do not finish within a couple of spots or close to that, that in my opinion is a bust. They don't have to completely suck. They just have to disappoint you where you drafted them during the time, right? So a lot of off-season hype, things of that nature. So, excuse me. Mine is actually Miles Sanders is my bust candidate for 2020. Now, before y'all at me and start getting angry, I'm not saying I don't like Miles Sanders. I do like Miles Sanders, but there's one thing that y'all have to understand about Doug Peterson and the Philadelphia Eagles is that it is in his DNA to have a running back by a committee. It does not matter who the other running back is. If they don't pick one up, which they wanted to very badly until Carlos Hyde slipped through their fingers, and I quote from Doug Peterson, the previous year before that, last year, I should say, was Boston Scott. Who? Exactly. Didn't matter. He was still fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
And here's another situation with Miles Sanders. When Jordan Howard went down, it was like, all right, this is Miles Sanders season, right? He's going to be the featured back. That's great. No, that's bad. The Eagles lost 3 games in a row with just one featured back with Miles Sanders. And one of those was to Miami.
That's crazy.
No bueno. So Doug Peterson completely ditched the one featured back with Miles Sanders and went back to the running back by committee, brought in Boston Scott. There goes the snap counts for Miles Sanders. Here goes up the snap counts for Boston Scott, who became very fantasy relevant. However, Miles Sanders was fantasy relevant, just not what people are expecting him to be in 2020. They are drafting him as he's going to be a featured back, and I don't think that's possible. They tried it. They lost. When they brought in Boston Scott and came back with the running back by committee that Doug Peterson is so known for, they won the last 4 games in a row. I mean, that's winning. So I think people are going to be disappointed with taking Miles Sanders in the first round, expecting him to be the guy, the featured back. I think he's going to do well, but I think he's going to be very disappointing. So that's why I put him in there as that bust candidate, as controversial as that may be. But I don't care. I am controversial. I'm spicy.
I mean, I think it makes sense. And it's really just where you lean on it. I when Kevin and I started doing this podcast, I was, Miles Sanders was whatever. Kevin had definitely made me be higher on him, but ultimately, like as high as I might say that I am on him, I don't own him anywhere this season that I didn't take him last year. So,
I'd rather have Boston Scott. You can get him late, and he's going to be an integral part of that offense if they don't pick up another running back. So he right now is kind of like that variable, but I would be more than happy to pass up on Miles Sanders to get a piece that I know for sure is going to have more volume as a featured guy. I would much rather pass on Miles Sanders and pick up Todd Gurley, an unquestioned featured back of Atlanta, in round 3. I mean, I have no problem doing that whatsoever. That's how much I just want to stay away from that.
For sure. Completely agree.
Yeah. So as far as your running back, I'll cede the floor to you, Gary, as far as your running back boss.
We'll go for another high up guy. So in almost the same, if not exact opposite, but the same with Deshaun Watson, he lost his big weapon. Nick Chubb had Kareem Hunt come in, and they brought in Austin Hooper, and then Odell is not going to be injured in theory. Jarvis is supposed to be good going in. The biggest bump, in my opinion, there are 2, and that's Jack Conklin comes in as the right tackle, and dude's a beast. He's awesome. He was blocking for Derrick Henry for a while at the Titans. And then you get Kevin Stefanski, who seems like he wants to run the ball. And in a draft that Kevin and I did a couple months ago, very early quarantine draft, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to go get Nick Chubb as my first round pick. I think it was my first round pick, maybe my second. And I'm all about that because Stefanski had just come in and I was like, they're going to run and run and run and run and run. No, I'm all about this. But then Kareem Hunt is so good. And, again, I'm just going to say disregard the offseason stuff, the off-field stuff in this instance. And that's when you're looking at Chubb and what his share of the pie is going to be. Kareem Hunt, there's no at the time, there was no bigger fan than me. I mean, I have my long anecdote, even down to his number was 27. And that's always been my number in all my sports. It's my birthday number, all that stuff. And this dude just lit the world on fire and pissed off everybody in my league that I had him. Anyway, he's really good. And Chubb had 8 touchdowns on the ground. Well, 8 touchdowns total last season. He only had 2 when Kareem Hunt came back after week 10. it's going to be split. And like, sure, that's Kamara and Ingram if you want to say that. But you know who Kamara and Ingram also had? Drew Brees and Sean frickin' Payton. And I don't know if Stefanski and Baker Mayfield are anywhere near that. So
it's like level. You can't do that.
Browns. That's it. I mean, I
love it.
But Nick Chubb is so good on the ground, right? He's awesome. Deshaun Watson's awesome too, but you're paying a price.
And then throw in the pot, with the Browns negative game scripts, and that Kareem Hunt's going to be taking a lot of that too. So that kind of leaves Nick Chubb. When they're winning or they're it's a close game, Nick Chubb, he's going to run all over. But once you get to a negative game scripts, it's Kareem Hunt time.
Yep, completely.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's too explosive. He's too explosive to not to keep it out of his hands would be a detriment to your team.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Real football does not play for us fantasy players. Like, they don't care about us, guys. They don't care. They want to win, right? So I'm starting to do that more and more. There's obviously you want to get good players from good teams, but also look at game script and also just understand that real football maybe it's not as fun as fantasy football, but it does play into it. It's always a huge, huge factor. So you could have all the stats out the wazoo. You got to look forward and see what the identity and the personalities of these teams are, and if they're changing depending on new players and coaching too, which is very important. But it sucks when players we love are like, they're not going to do well, and I know it. Crap.
Ask Doug Peterson, right? I mean, real versus fantasy. So
yeah, for real.
Ask Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no shit. So as far as my bust is pretty much it's low hanging fruit. It's Devin Singletary. As far as what he's being drafted right now at RB25. And he had the third worst Pro Football Focus efficiency grade among running backs with 25 plus receptions. And we know Zach Moss coming out from Utah, pretty above average receiver. And Brandon Beane has said that he will be ticketed for that Frank Gore role. So you're talking about high leverage touches there with goal line work, and potentially if he gets a third down role, that's going to pretty much limit Devin Singletary to between the 20s. So if you're looking at a fourth round price for him, I'd say the bloom is off the rose for him. I will not pay that price whatsoever. And why would you take Singletary when you can take Zach Moss in that 9th round and potentially get close to the same value?
I just heard Seal singing in my head when you were like, the bloom is off the rose. It's like, oh, sing it to me, Kevin.
No, you don't want me singing, trust me.
The bloom is off the rose. Oh, it's so great.
But
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people feel the same. In Devin's defense, I want his ADP hasn't dropped that much, but I wonder if at some point it will start to go down to the point that it becomes a value. But I mean, how far does he have to go down? I mean, Kevin and I are both, we're Zach Moss. We're happy to wait and take him. You said Boston Scott, like we're on the Zach Moss train, even if it's because the Majukes are just floating around in our head all the time. Yeah, I mean,
they're like the demon in your microphone.
Oh, I know. I love them so much. God, yeah, but they are, yeah.
Yeah. We're both pulling from Moss. I mean, we both have him in our Scotty Fish draft, so we're hoping that he pulls out.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. I'm kind of not. I'm not as low on Devin Singletary, I think, as a lot of people are. But I'm also not super excited. He's not one of those players where I'm like, "Yay!" I'm kind of like, "Oh, well, I already have my 2 starting running backs. I could just, put him in there. That's just kind of me on Devin Singletary. I'm not. I don't hate, but I'm not like in love. I'm in like-ish. I'm ambivalent. How about that?
He's more of a Sketcher backpack than a Prada backpack.
Oh,
10 things I hate about you. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary.
All right, Kevin. We're going to do the round robin here. So you're up with your wide receiver bust.
All right. So these people are going to listen to me talk again. Oh, great. Yep. So as far as another more low hanging fruit, I like to take the easy route here clearly because I'm going to talk about Keenan Allen, who, it's easy to see that kind of downturn in the passing game with Tyrod Taylor, who hasn't thrown more than 436 passes in his career. And we know Keenan Allen's averaged 148 targets the last 3 seasons, and it's pretty easy to see that come down. Maybe Tyrod Taylor cedes a little bit to Justin Herbert. He hasn't really, with no OTAs, we don't, know what that kind of timeline is with the Chargers and their transition over to Herbert. But the whole philosophy to me, it screams run the ball, take care of the football, let your defense make stops, and then just capitalize from there. We've seen them give Bosa a big deal. So, with those guys, and the fact that Keenan Allen hasn't had over 6 touchdowns, so he's not going to be able to, he's not a red zone guy. I mean, that's Hunter Henry, that's Mike Williams. So right now he's pretty much he's hollow targets at this point. And you're going to draft him at wide receiver 24. You're going to draft him in that McLaurin, Chark, Lockett, Metcalf, that kind of range. He's below all those guys for me. And you can make a case where, you could take maybe T.Y. Hilton or Marquise Brown if you want the upside, if you believe in him. But yeah, I'm out on Keenan Allen. He's a guy I've loved for years and just a solid PPR stalwart. And right now I think I'm not in love with him anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary, that silence, just waiting that long.
Yeah, it was a deep sigh of just frustration.
Did I break his heart? Did I break your heart, Gary?
He's just the best wide receiver in the NFL.
If you don't count like 20 or 30 other guys, sure, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't count Chris Goodwin.
Yeah, hopefully Sleeper adds him because that'd be great.
No, I mean, oh man, it's so difficult. Like this is where like the whole bust. Just to be clear, like this is by far my least favorite episode because
Agreed.
I just think I see the upside in everybody because everybody is based off of their relative value, and I actually think Keenan has slipped, and so he's become a value, but relative to his own personal thinking that he's like still in this elite tier. Like he's not a top 12 wide receiver anymore, especially with every reason that you said with the quarterbacks and whatnot, and just their team philosophy and whatnot. That being said though, I think we're going to get closer to 3 to 4 game hot streak Keenan Allen than 8 game hot streak Keenan Allen. And he was that 3 to 4 week person, 3 years ago, where all of a sudden at the beginning of the next season, you're always like, this is why we keep him up here. This is why he's a 12. If he put this all together, all of a sudden
he finishes well, and it's deceiving.
Yeah.
It's that recency bias. I did a piece on him. It was a fantasy report card, and you're looking at a tale of 2 seasons for Keenan Allen. And I love Keenan Allen too. He was livid about his ranking, like top 77 wide receivers. He's like, what? So you got to love that fire and that passion that he has for sure. But it is usually, like I said, a tale of 2 seasons with Keenan Allen. But he is talented, and he may be the one that's benefiting the most from Tyrod Taylor or whoever it is at quarterback, just doing those, short passes, just get it out. So you don't get a sack, you don't do an interception. There's an opportunity for him there, but it's not that elite wide receiver 1 status, but he's also not going for that right now. So I see what you're saying, Gary. I think he's kind of falling down a little bit more where it's palatable and you're not drafting him as a wide receiver 1.
Yes, definitely. Lauren, I'm gonna let you go because I'm actually pivoting right now as we are talking.
Okay.
So,
all right,
go for it.
Yeah, mine is. Well, for people who know me, this won't be surprising. I love this player. Again, I don't like doing bust shows, but they're a necessary evil. But mine is actually Cooper Kupp. So he is going, I think, right around the 4th round, 3rd or 4th round. Am I off on that? But he's going pretty high. And the reason why I have him as a bust potential is because of what the Rams offense, they are completely changing as they're going into 2020. And I say that because they started doing it in 2019. So after week 10, week 9 was their bye. So week 10, I believe, 9 or 10 was their bye, whatever. Don't quote me. It's one of those weeks. They started changing from the 11 personnel to the 12 personnel. And that's when we really saw Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett take a step forward because they're using a 2 tight end split. That's what that means. So they started phasing out Todd Gurley, and Brandon Cooks was either hurt or phased out anyway. So the people that actually got the most out of this 12 personnel were the tight ends, and it was Robert Woods. And Robert Woods was always on the field from week 1 until week 16. I believe he missed one game, but his snap count was like 92% over the entire year. Well, the last 10 weeks, Cooper Kupp's fell. There were a couple games when he was only in the 20% snap count range. Now, I understand he did score 5 touchdowns in the last 6 weeks. Great. But even a touchdown in those games was not enough to keep him up in worthy enough of a start. And let me go back to my notes here so I can get this right. So in the first 6 weeks during the 11 personnel, Kupp had 5 weeks out of 8. I'm sorry, first 8 weeks, excuse me, as a wide receiver 13 or better. So 5 out of 8 weeks, wide receiver 13 or better. And then after week 10, during the 12 personnel, he had 1 finish as a wide receiver 5, 1 finish as a wide receiver 16, and the other 6 weeks were a wide receiver 26 or worse. And I'm talking way worse. It was bad because he didn't see the field. So a lot of people are saying, oh, I want Cooper Kupp for the touchdowns. I get it. His stats and Robert Woods' stats were almost identical, except for the touchdowns. So if he's not going to be on the field as much, or even if he is, but he doesn't have the production, touchdowns still don't matter. So the reason he finished as a wide receiver 1 were because of the touchdowns he got, but the reason he finished so high with the stats was the 11 personnel. If the Rams continue to transition and stay with the 12 personnel, and it says to me they are because they phased out Todd Gurley, phased out Brandon Cooks, guess who's not on the team anymore? Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks. It looks to me like that was successful for them, and they want to try to use that more going forward, which means bad news for Cooper Kupp.
It's like music to my ears. It's like that was like listening to Mozart as the penultimate Robert Woods truther.
Should I just do like a mic drop and I'm out?
That's right. Yeah, we'll see you next week, everybody. But yeah, so I mean, Gary's listening to me wax poetic on Robert Woods, and in turn, just kind of slamming Cooper Kupp, and for all those reasons you said, Lauren. I mean, we saw
he's
Cooper
a red
Kupp.
zone threat, and he's very good. But his red zone threat is not enough to get him fantasy relevant. Continue, Kevin. I'm sorry. Yes, wax poetic. I'm ready. Go.
Oh, you're just fine. So, and another thing to look at too is Robert Woods' red zone. He had 5 of his 7 red zone targets from weeks 13 on too. So, if we could maybe see a bump in that in the 12 personnel, I mean,
and you will.
Yeah, Higbee and Kupp had a clear lead over Woods, but I can totally see that gap closing with a full season if they retain some of that 12 personnel usage in 2020.
I love Cooper Kupp. Like, he's one of him and Woods are the 2 pieces I like of that offense. And I mean, like, spoiler alert, like, we're going to be talking about their tight end position for my bust. And I just think, I don't know. I think that Kupp is going to, I think they're going to normalize where Kupp's going to come back to closer to his, like, let's just say his average, whereas Higbee's going to come down. I think that I'm not 100% sold that they're going to go completely back to 12 just because they have now this stable of running backs. Like, they're going to try and mix and match them. They're going to have Gerald Everett. They're going to have Van Jefferson. Like, I think that they're going to do everything they can to get a little bit
they
more.
Also have Josh Reynolds. Okay, whatever. I don't buy
Josh
that
Reynolds.
at all.
But
So
I think that they're
do
just going
buy.
to try.
Well, they could, sure, but that doesn't mean that means more volume for Cooper Kupp. The only thing that says to me, like, for the one argument I like for Cooper Kupp is that he's incredibly dynamic, but the best argument is that he has an excellent chemistry with Jared Goff. That is the only reason why I would say it's a possibility that he can perform where he's being drafted. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the Rams offense is completely different the second half of the season as it was the first half of the season. So I don't dislike Cooper Kupp. I'm concerned that he is going to be a bust, and the biggest argument I hear, I'm like, so why Cooper Kupp and not Robert Woods? They're like, he scores more touchdowns. That is the most fickle stat to try to predict every year. So if you take away their touchdowns, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are almost identical. Who stays on the field more? Robert Woods. Who's healthier? Robert Woods. Like, so why Cooper Kupp? I don't get it. Like, he's good, and like he's dynamic. I totally get it, but that high at ADP, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's not palatable, and also to that, if they want to run the ball, they're going to have to use them more.
Sweating.
Oh, it's spicy, but yeah, if they want to run the ball with Cam Akers or whoever or whatever running backs, they're going to have to use that 12.
Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, and then we're on the wide receivers: Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Pigg, Gerald Everett. That doesn't mean more volume for Cooper Kupp to me.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
I'm very passionate about this. I don't know why.
It's because the Rams suck and they just frustrate everybody
I
outside of
also-
Robert Woods.
I'm from St. Louis, so I do have a specific thing
Type
against
of
the
hatred
Rams.
for them.
Hey, I'm a chick, but our entire city are like chicks because it's like, you leave us, we're not happy for you. Are you happy for your ex-wife because she married another dude? No, you're mad and you're bitter.
I love it.
That's how I am. Go Saints.
Oh boy.
Move my kind of. I'm actually going to talk about two because it's very hard to find a bust in the top 20 wide receivers.
I mean, you could Google stepmom Lauren and you might find a bust, but probably a different bust than what you'll say.
Probably, but so I'll say my two, and they're not busts, and this is why, like, even I wanted to pivot here because I was just looking at Dell stats, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, 133 targets, like he still put up 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's not being drafted like he's Odell anymore, so actually he's pretty damn close to a value. So I don't understand, so I'm just confused there. But for the reasons that Stefanski confuses the heck out of me, like, are they going to throw? I can understand where Freddie Kitchens would at least say, hey, we're still going to throw to him 133 targets. But with Stefanski, like, that was always my concern. But where Odell is going, which Odell is currently going at the back of the third, sometimes going into the fourth, I don't know if there's as much downside to that right there. Going back to back with him, and this is the one that I'm the most nervous about, and this is purely narrative because even when you look at his stats, you're like, nope, that doesn't fit. And that's DJ Moore. And I'm just so nervous that about that offense as a whole outside of CMC. And what's funny is I can't see you guys because I'm pulling up a website, and I'm just wondering how much you guys are like, no or yes.
You'll never know.
But when you look at his game log, like, I know that I'm just being very flippant here, and I apologize for that, but it's difficult. Like DJ Moore is amazing. He was not even a shock at how good he was. So, and then the other person is Calvin Ridley. Like, I'm low on Calvin Ridley. I'm not going to own Calvin Ridley anywhere. But then you look at his actual totals when he is on the field, and he did miss a few games. Like, they're not bad whatsoever. He's not going to be my wide receiver one, but I apologize that I'm not nailing that down to any person in particular. But I don't know how.
You make a good point. This is an interesting year with wide receivers at their respective ADP, right? Just like you were saying, OBJ bust potential, but is he really? Because he's not being drafted in the first round. So I totally understand what you're saying. It's very strange for wide receivers this year, especially even as you go later down the draft. You're like, wow, that guy's still available. Sweet. It happens a lot. So I understand what you're saying. It's not as easy to pinpoint those wide receivers that have that bust potential. It's kind of hard this year just because of all the changing, moving pieces from last year that have affected this year.
I figured out who my bust is for this show.
Oh, boy.
It is early wide receiver. Kevin knows that I'm very RB robust. I'm even to the point because I genuinely believe Patrick Mahomes is going to light the world on fire that I'm going to say it's going with a wide receiver probably in my first 3 rounds. That is the bust for me. There's too much. You have CMC, you have Teddy Bridgewater, and like the positive for DJ Moore is that Teddy Bridgewater doesn't throw that far down the field. My cat just walked in here somehow, even though the door was shut, and she has opposable thumbs.
They're ninjas. Cats are ninjas.
So
like,
that was
poof of
always
smoke
my
and it's
concern.
gone.
Remember how much talk there was of is it DJ Moore or is it Curtis Samuel's?
Curtis Samuel, yeah.
And yet, like, we've just faded all that. You bring in Robbie Anderson again. For anybody listening, don't hear what I'm not saying. Like, DJ Moore is freaking awesome, but when you're talking about who you're taking at their respective values, the other guys going around DJ Moore, like, would you take DJ Moore at 401 when you might be able to, for me, take my third RB or wait and potentially get Woods, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, DJ Chark, like all these guys I can wait 1 round and try and get when I could be taking a running back that's going there, which is like the complete flip of like the JJ Zacharyson, like the 4th, 5th round. Like, this is where you double up on wide receiver. And these guys are awesome. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm totally talking in circles and not being helpful to anybody, but this is just where my head goes to these guys and why I don't have them on a lot of my teams.
I get it.
It sounds like a complicated place to your head.
Oh, it always is. You should ask my wife. She's like, why did I marry you?
Some complicated airspace. So we have tight ends now, and I'm gonna cede this one to Lauren first because I don't know who she's gonna go with. Because I know I had originally taken Austin Hooper. Are you gonna stick with Hooper or what you got?
I'll stick with Hooper. Yeah, I'll stick with Austin Hooper. I had two of them. I believe more because my original one was going to be Jared Cook. However, he's going really late, like 10th round. So I don't necessarily believe that's bust. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with my original. Thank you for ceding that to me, Kevin. This is so opposite. Just there you go. I'll just do that. So yeah, it's Austin Hooper for me. I loved what he did in Atlanta, which is one of the reasons I like Hayden Hurst quite a bit. I think he's going to be a value at tight end. Might take him a few weeks to get going, but I really like Hayden Hurst in Atlanta. But there's so many mouths to feed, like Gary was talking about, like Kevin was talking about. There's just too many people to feed. And I said this on a podcast earlier, but you're talking about Baker Mayfield, who doesn't necessarily have like a giant shovel of like Thanksgiving stuffing. He has a toothpick with like a smoked sausage on it that he's going to try to have to like feed everybody with. It's not going to happen. And I think then OBJ is going to be demanding the targets. He's healthy. Jarvis Landry's there. Kareem Hunt's there. Nick Chubb. Who else is left? I mean, obviously Austin Hooper's left, but I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't like it. Kevin Stefanski didn't do much for the tight end position, a little bit, but it doesn't. Yeah, but everyone is looking at what he did in Atlanta and how explosive he was. I think that had to do with Matt Ryan. I think that had to do with Atlanta's offense. So I think people are going to be disappointed if they draft Austin Hooper, which is sad because I like him. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, I like.
This is such a sad episode. I'm like, he's gonna suck. I don't like saying that, but he's gonna be bad.
We hate everybody here.
I do. It sounds like it. We're so negative.
But that's what it is. It's all these people that
realistic.
That's why it's so difficult because we like all these people that are all have upsides, but some people just have less upside
instead of busts.
Yeah,
I like that.
There we go.
And I with Hooper, it's like, man, there's a non-zero chance that Njoku ends up being better. Like, that's just crazy to me. I mean, he has a better draft pedigree, and it's taken a while, but like, who has he had coaching him? Hooper could come in and be an awesome blocker. He won't be, but
I want Hooper's agent though. Get him that bag.
Yeah, right.
I want
contracts are so weird right now.
Yeah, no.
I want Sam Bradford's agent. That's who I want. Oh, an ailing old quarterback. Yeah, here's a ton of money. Wait, what did you do? How did you do that?
Not much of anything.
I'm gonna jump in here with my tight end bust, and I'm for the first time ever gonna end up probably jumping off the pod early. My son is not doing very well, so I'm just gonna say real quick, Tyler Higbee. For all the reasons that like you're fading Cup, I'm actually saying like I just don't know if they're just gonna.
It's a two tight end split. It's tight end season, and it's not gonna be Gerald Everett. It's gonna be Tyler Higbee. What are you talking about?
But Gerald, why not? Gerald Everett wasn't even healthy when Higbee did his stuff. Like when it's a split, they're going to split, and you're not going to get the value that you put in to get Higbee. And on top of that, you're talking about this like tale of two seasons and that they split. But like, were they doing 12 personnel the season before when they were the like second best offense in the NFL?
No idea. I only looked at last year. I can't remember what I had for lunch last week.
Remember like when they played against the Chiefs and they had that like game that lit the world on fire?
Okay,
that was
Tyler
in 2018.
Higbee's going in
the Super Bowl team.
Tyler Higbee's going at the 802. So it's not like they're drafting him fourth, fifth round.
He's tight end 6, though. You're not taking a tight end. The top 5 tight ends will go ahead of the 6th round. After that, like I'm not going to take someone there. I'd rather just wait. That's where I'm going to scoop up wide receivers because I'm not going to take wide receivers later.
Go take your bust pick, put it in the pot with your son who's ill, and move along.
I'm really sorry, guys. You know that I've never done this before. So, Lauren, it was amazing talking with you. I'm going to let you guys finish it up. Kevin, I'm so sorry. But
good luck, Gary.
Family's family. So I'm I'm actually, I don't think I can close out the screen without screwing everything up. So you guys
Just walk away. We'll be fine.
You guys will look at the wall.
We'll just make fun of your you
You have
while
a
you're not
cardboard
there.
thing, like
Thanks, guys.
baseball games?
Yeah,
cardboard
you need to
cutout?
get one of those.
Yeah, we'll leave
is it
that
Leo
there.
back there? I can't tell who's back there.
Can't tell
Elephants
either.
and yeah.
But as
Is
far
that
as
is that his draft board over there with all the post-its?
maybe I can't see. It's too tiny.
Oh my God, maybe it is.
We're gonna get some intel.
I don't know.
I wish
You need to hack his
StreamYard-
computer so we could move it.
I am not the person to do that. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I'm going to continue as far as Higbee. So when Higbee took over, because Gerald Everett had a good start to 2019, then Higbee kind of took that over whenever it got hurt. But then whenever it came back, Johnny Munt was the tight end that was getting the work with a healthy Everett playing special teams. So I don't think Gerald Everett is in any way going to be a integral part of this team. I haven't drafted him. I have no real interest in Everett, but Higbee, just based on where you're drafting those tight ends, those mid-round tight ends, I'm not a fan of. With Hunter Henry and Ingram with his injuries and guys like that, I'm out on basically that tier of tight end.
Yeah, I hear you. But I mean, I don't know. I like Tyler Higbee a lot. Don't love him, but I like him. I do like him. But there are other tight ends that you can get late if you want to take a shot on somebody. You're talking about Mike Gesicki. Like I said, Hayden Hurst is another one. There's some tight ends that are late if you decide to use that strategy and wait on your tight end if you don't want to use that high draft capital to go after guys like Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews. I mean, Zach Ertz has been falling to the 4th, 5th round, which may be a sweet spot for you. He's going to have to compete with Dallas Goedert. So that's another one too. So tight end is actually interesting this year. It's not as much of a dumpster fire as it has been in years past. It's intriguing. I just don't know if I agree that Tyler Higbee is going to be a bust. And I had to give him a hard time.
No, absolutely, because I can't do it alone. I'll just say that.
I've got you.
I appreciate it. It's solidarity right here. So I'm going to talk about one of the late round tight ends too, because he's getting a lot of hype and he might sneak into that top 12 as far as where he's being drafted. As far as he's tight end 12 on Fantasy Football Calculator, that's Noah Fant. So just like you were talking about Austin Hooper, it's a very crowded situation in Denver with guys like Melvin Gordon getting money. And then they draft Judy with a first. They draft KJ Hamler with a second. You've still got Sutton. You've got Philip Lindsay there. So I don't think Drew Lock is going to be passing the ball all over. Not in a Vic Fangio. I don't think he's going to have Lock throw 600 times. So there's not going to be room for all these targets. Really, room for Sutton. Gordon's a pretty solid receiver. Lindsay's going to get his. Judy, you got to figure with first round capital, he's going to get his. But Noah Fant, I'm just unsure with that. And at where he's going, I'd rather have Gesicki. I'd rather have Hayden Hurst. I'd rather have even like a TJ Hawkinson. I'd rather have those guys that I know have at least a realistic shot of being maybe that number 2 or number 3 in the pecking order, like those guys, versus Fant, who could be the number 4 in the pecking order or lower. So at least for this year, because I love Noah Fant's athletic profile, I'm out on Fant, but I think he can assert himself eventually. We know how long it takes for tight ends to progress in the league. Yeah. I just don't think it's a 2020 thing for Fant.
I agree. I'm a Missouri girl, so I graduated from the University of Missouri, Bachelor of Journalism. And Drew Lock is my boy. I follow the Tigers, so I love Drew Lock. And I do agree with you. There's just like the Austin Hooper situation, way too many mouths to feed. And the piece of that, the pieces, I should say, of that offense that I want to own in fantasy is Cortland Sutton. It's going to be Drew Lock for matchup based, so you can get him late anyway. But Cortland Sutton, I don't mind Melvin Gordon. I still love Philip Lindsay, and you can get him late. He's dropping so far because of the addition of Melvin Gordon. And I love the addition of Jerry Jeudy, just not relevant in fantasy this year. He is going to take away a lot of defenses to allow Cortland Sutton to get open, get downfield, and create those big bomb plays for you. That doesn't, like you said, it doesn't leave a lot of room for Noah Fant. I was actually just trying to look to see what their market share was for tight ends, but my internet's being stupid and I can't pull it up, but maybe I'll tweet it out later. But I don't love that. And I'm actually coming out with a piece pretty soon. It's called 3 Tight Ends to Remember. And there's another name that a lot of people are talking about, and it's kind of like ho-hum, and it's Jack Doyle. I like Jack Doyle. I mean, Eric Ebron is gone. You've got Phillip Rivers, who I know loves to target his running backs, but he also doesn't mind targeting his tight ends, and Jack Doyle is a talented tight end. So I think he can see the end zone. He's a good value for a late round tight end. Another sneaky name I may end up exploring. You got the Jets tight end Chris Herndon, who had an amazing rookie breakout with Sam Darnold. Unfortunately, suspension. Then he got hurt, and he saw like 7 snaps last year. Well, he's healthy again, in a Jets offense with a ton of vacated targets. And then the Cowboys, Blake Jarwin is another one that no one is talking about. So you can either take a late dart throw on him, you can pick him up off waivers. There's a lot of these late round guys that have opportunity, and who knows what else is going to happen with this COVID stuff and people either opting out or getting put on the COVID reserve. So there's so many moving pieces and parts that it's going to be changing every single day, which is exciting. It's nerve wracking for us fantasy analysts and writers, but it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Because tight end, just remember, even just a few years ago when you had guys like Gates and Gonzalez, and then after that it was a wasteland. So now we're getting this infusion of young talent at the position, and now where it was you had 7 guys, and then take your pick, switch them on the waiver wire. Now you're almost 20 deep now with guys that have potential to be a top 12 guy. So it's really it's a crazy shift, even in just 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, which is awesome because we hate having the tight end landscape be a dumpster fire. Another low hanging fruit here that people may not like is going to be a bust, in my opinion. Rob Gronkowski definitely has the potential to be a tight end bust, as much as I hate to say it, because everybody loves Gronk.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it's Tom Brady. They still have OJ Howard. You think Cameron Brate's still there? So we'll see how that goes. I'm staying away personally from the Gronk smash.
I'm not big on. I love the guy. I did shots with him in Syracuse because he went to he went to I believe it was Syracuse Duke game, and then he came on campus. Yeah, so he was just buying people shots, and he's the life of the party. I mean, you're looking at all these people the same height, and then you see this 6'8" monster towering over everybody with a thing full of shots, just handing them out.
Oh my gosh,
the coolest dude on the planet.
That's awesome.
But and now he's coming back. He hasn't played since 2018, and he's not going to be the same type of tight end as he was. He's probably going to be a little bit leaner. He's not going to be as good of a post-up guy, certainly in high leverage targets, end zone. I think he's still going to get some touchdowns. Obviously, with touchdowns, you can't forecast them.
He's a perfect security blanket. I mean, that's something that Tom Brady needs. Like, this is literally like, can you imagine what Tom Brady's mind must be going through? I know he's TB12 and he's like, basically should be on Mount Olympus. I get it. But he's going from the Patriots that he just knows and has been, that's all he's ever known in the NFL, to like a completely different state in Tampa Bay with a new head coach, all of these new pieces, all of these new offensive schemes. Like, can I just have somebody that I know, please?
Right.
That's kind of what I would do. Like, especially Gronk. Like, come on, man. Can you just come hang out with me? I need a friend.
Right. I'm surprised they didn't try to pony up some a pick or two for James White at least. I didn't think Gronk was gonna come back from retirement. Honestly, I perused him in Dynasty. Just should I pick him up? Yeah, but I don't want to drop this guy. I'll just leave him. And then that news broke, and he was like probably a minute too late in every league. That Gronk wasn't rostered in. But the fact that they need a receiving back, in that offense, and you really want to depend on Daria Gumbawale or Raymond Calais, I thought James White would have been a perfect fit in that Tampa offense with the guys they have. I'm surprised they didn't jump on that, but who knows? Bill is playing that close to the vest. It is what it is. But I'm not a big fan of Gronk this year. You won't see me drafting him. Maybe as a tight end too in like best ball, but that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, best ball. He's a pretty good candidate.
So, all right. Well, Lauren, really appreciate having you on here. Just let us know again where we can find you, and again what you're working on, and we'll wrap it up.
So my next article I'm going to be putting out, like I said, is going to be the 3 tight ends to remember. So look for that from the fantasy footballers. But all of my work, you can find it at my website. It's stepmomlauren.com. I just got back from vacay, so I do need to update with some recent articles that I have put out since I was on vacation, which is weird. I write fantasy articles when I'm on vacation. That's just what I do because it's fun. But yeah, you can find all my stuff there, guys. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm terrible with all of them except Twitter. That's my favorite one. So just keep that in mind. At Stepmom Lauren. I love hearing from y'all, so come talk to me. Ask me questions.
Absolutely. Well, again, Lauren, thank you so much for. I'm glad we could make this work out finally. After.
Yeah, finally, I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Gary. Even though you can't hear me, and I really want to know what those Post-it notes are.
The
I have
ghost
to
of
find
Gary.
that out now.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
I'll text him and I'll see what's going on. And
Those are color coordinated too, so I have a feeling those are either tier breakdown rankings or like targets
it could
that
be
he wants to look at.
It could be something for his wife,
or
too.
it's like his kids like chores schedule, which would be
Maybe.
not as fun.
Now I'm interested. Now I want to know.
I'm curious.
I'm gonna screenshot it and blow it up and do like super investigative reporting or something.
Yeah. I'm a journalism major. I can totally pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
There you go. I don't. Yeah. Well, women are, they're very inquisitive. They want to know. They're willing to dig in and they're willing to, find out what's going on.
That's why we make great fantasy analysts. Hashtag Women of Fantasy Football. Club Fantasy. Follow them.
Absolutely, 100%. So, yeah, we'll wrap it up. So again, Lauren, thank you so much. And Gary, the ghost of Gary Haddow, he is not invisible. He is just tending to his family. So, for Gary. For Lauren, I'm Kevin Tompkins. Thank you for tuning in to Fighting Chance Live, and we'll see you next week. Have a great night, everybody.